The 2025 college football season is right around the corner, but I just couldn't wait to find out what was going to happen. I enlisted the help of College Football 26 dynasty simulations to predict what was most likely to take place across the sport, and the results were pretty insane. I simulated 5 seasons and collected data that I then averaged together to determine who the game thinks are the contenders and pretenders this year. Penn State finished as the only team to win more than one national championship. The Nittany Lions topped Georgia 20-14 in our second simulation, then walloped Indiana 34-7 in the fourth go-around. Yeah, that's right, Indiana made the national championship game. Aside from Penn State winning 2 championships in 5 tries, the other champions may not be the teams you'd expect going into the season. Miami won our first sim, beating Texas Tech. Oklahoma destroyed Florida in our third simulation. And Texas Tech had the best record of any team across all 5 runs in the final simulation, going 15-1 and winning the Natty over Clemson. The simulation absolutely loves the Red Raiders this year for some reason. They finished with the most overall wins at 57, the most conference wins with 39, and the most average wins at 11.4. They made the playoff in 4 out of 5 scenarios and had no worse than a 12-2 record when they did. Could Joey McGuire's team be a sleeper this season? The only team to make it to the playoff in all 5 of our attempts was Oregon. The Ducks had as high as the number 2 ranking and as low as the number 10, but either way, Dan Lanning found a way to get in to run with the final 12 teams in all of our playoff situations here. Along with Texas Tech, there were several other teams who made it 4 times, and again, probably not teams you'd expect for some of these. You've got Clemson, the understandable one, but then Duke, Indiana, and Oklahoma. Oh yeah, Georgia made it too, but yeah, that one makes sense. There were 5 teams who made the playoffs in 3 of the 5 simulations. Penn State was one, as the Nittany Lions were clutch, winning it all in 2 of their 3 overall trips. Miami, Michigan, Notre Dame, and USC also joined that list. Boise State and Texas made it twice to the playoff round. 12 other teams made the playoff once during the simulation. Who's the craziest here for you? I'd say the obvious answer is Ohio State, defending national champions, who only made it in our 3rd simulation, where they were the 3rd seed at 11-3 overall. Alabama also only made it once along with the Buckeyes. They got in that scenario with 3 losses. I like James Madison, South Florida. Tulane getting in to rep the G5 too. That is an interesting one when it wasn't Boise State getting the bid. There was a whole lot of parity too, and if that's any indication, this college football season could get interesting. Indiana was the only team that came into the playoffs undefeated, going 13-0 in our first sim. They still didn't get the number 1 seed though, as Clemson ended up taking that. ACC bias, am I right, guys? No team would finish the season unblemished either across the 5 simulations. As we said, Texas Tech came the closest, but the Red Raiders went 15-1 in their Natty winning year. Probably the craziest playoff bracket was from Sim 2, where South Carolina got in as an 8 seed with 4 losses. There were 5 teams in the playoff field that had 3 or more losses entering the CFP. Only 7 teams finished with 10 or more wins on average across all 5 simulations. Texas Tech, Clemson, Indiana, Oregon, Boise State, Duke, and Georgia. There were only 10 teams that averaged 9 or more wins across all sims. SMU, USC, Oklahoma, Miami, Tulane, Michigan, Penn State, Ohio State, James Madison, and Toledo. Now let's look at some of the awards and see if there was any patterns here. We start with the Heisman, where we see a 3-time winner across multiple sims. John Mateer, quarterback from Oklahoma. Now this one might be a gamble now with the news that came out, pun intended, but he definitely balled out in the sims, even giving OU a natty on one of them like we said. He finished as a runner-up one of the times he didn't outright win the Heisman, and only had 1 sim where he didn't finish as the winner or runner-up or make the top 5. Mateer also dominated in other awards categories as he swept the Maxwell, Walter Camp, and Davey O'Brien awards in Sims 2, 3, and 5. Cade Klubnik won the Heisman in one of the simulations and appeared as one of the 5 finalists in 2 other sims. Klubnik also swept the Maxwell, Walter Camp, Davey O'Brien, and Unitas in Sim 4. He would win the O'Brien and Unitas Awards in Sims 1 and 5 despite not winning the Heisman. His receiver Tyler Brown won at one time with Klubnik coming in second. Fernando Mendoza finished in 5th place in 3 of the 5 simulations. Dabo won Coach of the Year twice in 2 sims, and we had a weird 2-time winner here too. No offense to Buffalo coach Pete Lembo, but him winning the award twice is kind of surprising, especially since Buffalo never made a playoff or anything like that, though they did go 11-2 twice. Jeremiah Love of Notre Dame and Mekhi Hughes of Oregon both had great runs in multiple simulations. Each won 2 Doak Walker Awards, and the 2 were either seemingly leading the nation in either rushing yards or rushing touchdowns in nearly each sim we had. Hughes had a season where he had 32 rushing touchdowns. Jake Slaughter of Florida seems like a great candidate to win some awards, at least if College Football 26 has any say in that. He won the Outland and Remington Awards in Sims 2, 4, and 5, the most consistent offensive line award winner by far across Sims. Let's look now conference by conference at how teams fared in each of these simulations. It's interesting to look at how some of these teams varied across our sims. We start in the ACC. Clemson is, of course, the top dogs. Interesting, though, that they have all this success throughout the simulations, but they don't win a national title in any of them. Duke also is a favorite on this one. Their worst record ends up being 9-3, and they even have a year where they go 12-1. Miami, Pitt, Louisville, Florida State, Virginia, Virginia Tech, Cal, all finish with winning total records throughout. Syracuse is the most interesting one to me. The Orange end up being 5-7 at best after that great season that they had last year. That's my biggest surprise for sure. The AAC ended up sending 2 teams to the playoffs throughout this, and those are the top 2 teams on this list here. Tulane made it in one scenario, South Florida in another. Aside from them, Navy, Memphis, North Texas, UTSA, UAB consistently finished at the top of the ranks in the American Athletic Conference. Another intriguing team on this list to me is Army, who had a great season last year. They end up being 5-7 at best throughout all of our trials in this. As we've talked about throughout, you see it on display here, the success of Texas Tech all throughout this, winning a natty in Sim 5 and all they've been able to accomplish in this video. But how about Baylor? They end up having wonderful seasons, finishing 9-4 or better in 3 of the 5 and 7-5 in the other 2. Iowa State, Kansas finished with winning seasons or 500 seasons in all of their runs. Arizona State, probably the biggest wild card coming off that playoff berth last year. They were as good as 10-3 and 9-3 in Sim 3 and 1, but finished 5-7, 4-8, and 6-6 in other simulations. How about this surprise in the Big Ten with Indiana, the top dog, finishing with 9 wins or more in every situation and 10 or more wins in all but 1. Oregon is Mr. Consistent here, making the playoff in every sim, as we said earlier. USC, Michigan, Ohio State, Penn State, Nebraska, Illinois all had winning records or 500 seasons in every sim. Some interesting ones toward the bottom, too. Minnesota had one season where they went 8-4, then 3 others where they flip-flopped and went 4-8. In the CUSA, you see Liberty put together some good seasons early on, but then they had 2 attempts where they went 6-6 at the end. No team in Conference USA finished with a winning record in every simulation. Could that mean the CUSA is wide open this year? Most interesting difference to me, also, Western Kentucky going 8-5 one year, then 3-9 in another. Little action now, and I do want to point this out because I was incorrect earlier when I said there was no team that finished undefeated in the regular season other than Indiana in Sim 1. That's actually not true. Toledo finished 13-0 in Sim 1. They got snubbed out of the playoffs for a 2-loss Tulane team. Ridiculous. The Rockets were the only MAC team to have a winning record every year. Buffalo ends up piecing together 2 11-win seasons that win their coach the Coach of the Year honors twice, as we talked about. Those 2 in Ohio, the only MAC teams to either have a winning season or a 500 season in every sim. In the Mountain West, you of course have Boise State dominating. They finished with 5 or more wins in every sim and with 10 or more in all but the first. San Jose State is an interesting one because they actually finished better than Boise State in the first sim, but then they have a turn in the fourth where they go 4-8. Hawaii also has some major ups and downs, winning 10 games in the third sim and just 4 in the fifth. San Diego State finished with a winning record every sim, and UNLV finished with a winning record or 500 record too. The SEC had Georgia as the top dog with 9 or more wins every year. Oklahoma also finished with a winning record every time, though they were 7-5 with a 3-5 SEC mark on the first attempt we did. Florida goes 8-4 or better in every sim, kind of surprising with that difficult slate they have. Texas has 2 10-win seasons, but one 7-5 run in sim number 2. Texas A&M and Alabama finish with winning records every time too, though the Tide goes 7-5 twice. South Carolina was the biggest in terms of the pendulum swinging, 10-3 in sim 1 and then 4-8 in sim number 5. Kentucky is kind of surprising to me. Everyone thinks Mark Stoops is on the hot seat, but he says not so fast, my friends, as he finishes every season at 500 or better on here too. Hashtag extend Mark Stoops. In the Sun Belt now, where James Madison puts together some great teams in this one, as good as 11-2 overall twice, and making the playoffs in sim number 5. Southern Miss goes 7-5 2 times, but 10-3 once in Charles Huff's first year. Georgia Southern wins 11 in 10 games, then has a year when they go 6-6. Texas State is 6-6 or better every year, and Arkansas State is back and forth with 4 wins in sim 1 and 10 wins in sim 2. Troy also has a pretty big gap. They went 9-4 in one and 3-9 in the other. Lastly, we look at the Pac-12 and the independents. Oregon State will play Washington State twice this season, and on this sim, they won 8 out of the 10 matchups. Washington State does not end up finishing with a record better than 6-6. The independents are interesting too because there's 2 different times where Notre Dame finishes at 7-5. Now looking at each championship simulation, we had some pretty interesting games in some of these natties. I would not mind a bit if these were how our national championships panned out in real life this year. We're in need of a banger game for the title. Our first natty winner was Miami. What's funny about this, the Canes still didn't win the ACC this year, so they won a national championship before an ACC title. They had an interesting opponent in the Texas Tech Red Raiders. Things almost got out of hand late in this one. Miami's defense dominated early on. The Hurricanes kicked 4 field goals in the first half to take a 12-0 lead into the break. Most of this game was pretty wild. Texas Tech scored early in the third quarter, and this ends up being a pretty back-and-forth game that came down to the wire. Late in the fourth, Texas Tech ends up kicking a field goal to make it a 12-10 game in favor of Miami. Both these teams came in averaging over 500 yards a game, but it was the defense that came through for each. That trend continues late, as I don't know what this play call was or if this was a Beck play or a College Football 26 play, but I hate when this happens to me. Ball pops up into the air, it's picked off. Texas Tech would capitalize as the Red Raiders kicked a short field goal to go ahead 13-12 with 2:50 left in the game. Beck would make up for that mistake, though, as he is able to convert 2 huge fourth downs to keep the game going and Miami's championship chances alive. He gets the Canes down the field, and then he finds Tony Johnson for the go-ahead touchdown score late in this one. Miami added the 2-point try to go up by 7 points, and then shortly after Texas Tech takes over, the Canes force a turnover to put this one away. I know Mario Cristobal isn't in the game because here's Miami taking a knee to close out the game, and there we get our confirmation. That's definitely not Mario, but the Canes are your national champions here in this one as the 6th seed, finishing at 15-2 on the season. Second sim, we've got Georgia taking on Penn State. And like our first one, this game ended up coming down to the final minutes too. Another matchup I don't think people would complain if we got in reality, the Bulldogs facing the Nittany Lions. Georgia would strike first, one of the stars of our simulation, and the only 2-time Biletnikoff Award winner, Zachariah Branch, scoring to start off the game. Looks like he's ready to have a big season for the Bulldogs based on our results here. Penn State answered back themselves late in the first with a short field goal to make the score 7-3 UGA. Now in the second, both teams make a big mistake as they are driving in opponent territory. First, it's Gunnar Stockton throwing a pick for Georgia, and then Penn State looks like they're about to score, and they fumble away the ball. The turnover bug keeps infecting the Bulldogs as Stockton can't stop giving it up like a prostitute on Black Friday. Another pick. He had 3 in the first half of this one. And that short field is looking mighty appetizing for Nick Singleton. He's going to get in with the rushing score, to put Penn State ahead. After that aforementioned third interception of the half from Stockton, sorry to spoil the plot earlier, Penn State able to add to their lead, but it's just another field goal, so just 13-7 Nittany Lions at the half. Both defenses really dominated this simulation in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback. Sacks galore in this one. That leads to a red zone turnover on downs for both of these teams as each coach gets aggressive, tries to go for it on a 4th and short, well within field goal range. Early in the 4th, still up by 6 points, Penn State's going to cash in on a deep ball to get it in inside the red zone once more. Beautiful pass here from Drew Aller, who was cooking down the stretch of this one. Then it's Singleton capping things off with another rushing touchdown for the Nittany Lions, who look to be in control here. Keyword look to be. The one thing you could not have happen if you're Penn State happens, a sack, a fumble, and a scoop and score as we have a big man tutter in the national championship. How about this? And it's now also a one-score game here. Around 2.5 to play, Georgia does wind up getting the ball back again with a chance. They had it 1st and 10 from the Penn State 44-yard line. In fact, Stockton's going to continue his rough outing, though, as Georgia will throw 4 straight incompletions here to turn it over on downs. Bulldogs still have timeouts. They still have life, and they still have a chance when they get this interception coming on 3rd down and 8. They have a long ways to go, but they do have the ball back with some time to work with. However, those comeback hopes would fall short relatively quickly as it's Stockton throwing his 4th interception of the game here to close this out. And Penn State takes home the national championship here in this one. The first of 2 that the Nittany Lions would win in this simulation. More on that coming up. But first we've got Oklahoma, and we told you what this game thinks of John Mateer at quarterback for the Sooners. He was one of the most consistent players throughout, and he's taken on Florida here in this one in a battle of SEC teams in a rematch of the 2008 National Championship, which was also played in Miami. The duo of Mateer and Jaden Ott was too tough to stop for Florida. They moved the ball well all game, had a ton of yardage in this one. They would also get out to a nice lead early on that made things difficult for Florida to try and make a comeback here in this game. The Sooners had a couple drives stall out and were forced to kick field goals, but all in all, they jumped out to a 20-0 lead in the first half before Florida could even get on the board. The Gators would end up scoring in the final minute of the second quarter to try and make things interesting at the halftime break. Oklahoma still having an issue finishing off drives. They end up having to kick another field goal in the third quarter. Then early in the 4th to go ahead 26-7 in this one. Florida finally scored again with about 4 minutes to play. They have a slim chance here, but they need to hurry and have a ton of things go their way if they want to make a comeback. Looks like they might have a chance to make a stop late in this one, but nope. Oklahoma comes through, a huge dagger on 3rd down to end the game on this long touchdown bomb from Mateer. Gators add another score in garbage time, but when it's all said and done, your Oklahoma Sooners win simulation number 3 as the national champ. Sim number 4 in the national championship, we had another Penn State sighting. James Franklin finding a way to get it done here in our college football 26 simulations. This time they're taking on a familiar foe in their Big Ten conference rival, Indiana. Another one of those teams who seem to constantly have big seasons throughout these simulations. It looked like a Big Ten game early, maybe one involving Iowa, as neither team was able to score in the first quarter of play. Penn State struck first early in the second quarter on a scoring pass to the tight end who made a big impact in this championship game, and the Nittany Lions go up 7-0. This game really likes Fernando Mendoza, and you can see why late in the first half. I do think he's going to be fun to watch with Curt Cignetti this season for the Hoosiers, and he was definitely fun to watch on this drive as he's going to lead Indiana all the way into the end zone late in the second quarter to tie us up at 7s. Penn State, though, they have a stud quarterback of their own, Drew Aller, as we saw earlier, and he's going to extend the drive on a 3rd and short. Then a couple plays later, under a minute left before halftime, he's going to get a passing touchdown to put the Nittany Lions out in front 14-7 at the break, and that would be all they needed. Things start to get away from Indiana in the second half as Penn State just carving that Hoosiers secondary up. Aller making some incredible throws early on in this third quarter, and then I like this one. A little QB blast for a touchdown to end a drive. Okay, James Franklin, I see you watch the channel, brother. Late in the third, Penn State adds another as, again, Aller is just balling out in this national championship on the way to winning the Nittany Lions their second title out of 4 simulations so far. Could Penn State be the favorite to win it all in real life? A dominant performance to win it all here in this one over Indiana. Aller plays a near-perfect game, and the Nittany Lions play probably as well as they possibly could in this scenario and are able to take home the championship in sim number 4. Last but not least, we have our 5th simulation national championship, and this is another intriguing one. It's Clemson, who is the epitome of consistency so far in this video, taking on another stalwart for some reason, and Texas Tech for our last championship crown. Now, unfortunately, we have some 2007 championship game vibes in this one. Shades of Texas versus Alabama, as on the first Tiger series, we see Cade Klubnik go down, and he is unfortunately unable to return to the game. That obviously is a big blow for Clemson, but the Tigers are still able to fight, make things interesting throughout. Both teams go back and forth early, but Clemson is able to move the ball when they get it on Texas Tech's side of the field first, getting a conversion, and then finishing off the series with the rushing tutter. 10-0 Tigers in the first quarter here. Like Klubnik, Baron Morton was pretty solid across all simulations in terms of winning games and putting up numbers. He shows off his dual threat attributes here, first making a first down throw, then getting a run for the score to cap off the drive and pull his Red Raiders back within 1 possession. That's where you miss Cade if you're Clemson, the starter who was so good at taking care of the ball across every one of our sims. The backup takes a risky toss and it gets picked off, leads to the Red Raiders scoring to take the lead just moments later as they're able to rally back from that early 10-0 hole on this touchdown throw. Texas Tech adds to their advantage in the last minute of the first half as they are on the move, and they pay it off with a scoring throw to Coy Eakin here to put the Red Raiders out ahead 21-10 at the halftime break. Can the Red Raiders win a natty? They go in front 24-10 with an early third quarter field goal, does Texas Tech. Clemson driving early in the fourth now, and there's plenty of time, but things get dire when the Tigers take 3 sacks in a row. They go from inside the red zone to facing a 4th down and 29 and have no choice other than to kick it. That makes the score 24-13, and from there, the Red Raiders are able to hold it down, and that ends up being the final in this one. Of course, think this would have been a lot more fun had Klubnik not gone down, but hey, you got to love the old college football 26 wear and tear, am I right? And speaking of loving things, if you loved this video, help Spiced Up Gaming out. Hit that subscribe button. We've got plenty more of these simulation-type videos, plenty more college football 26 content, live streams here on the channel. So hit that like button on the video, hit that subscribe on the way out. I'd appreciate it, and thank you for tuning in.